This is episode 63 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 63 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Sandy MacKay on the show, and it was an absolutely awesome interview that Sandy gave. For those of you who aren't familiar with Sandy, he is the co-founder of the Breakthrough Real Estate Investing Podcast here in Canada. He's the OG for Canadian podcasting. And I had the chance today to ask him the questions that don't often get asked, because Sandy doesn't really often open up and talk about his story, and he really should. He told the story of how he's acquired 200 units to date. He has his own construction company, his own real estate team, as well as his own property management company. And he's done all of this in the span of, I think he said about 8 years. So he went from just being a guy talking about real estate to a guy that had wholesaled real estate, teamed up with his now wife, and bought many, many properties and grown it into a very substantial business. So it was a very interesting interview, and I really did enjoy learning more about Sandy and how he's conducted his business. One thing that came through really clear is that he's got an excellent mindset. What we got into in today's episode is talking about not only the mindset that you need to have to be successful, but how you need to be looking at situations to find opportunity in them. Of course, we know we're in lockdown mode right now. We are watching our market patiently to figure out when we're going to be able to resume our economy. And for those of you who've been following, you know I've had a few thoughts on that. I really do believe, and nothing has really changed there, and of course this is my opinion, that we really can't afford to stay shut down any longer. There's a lot of businesses that are really being impacted by this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably talk on the next episode, just a basic economics lesson and kind of getting into some details as to why we need to resume and how the basic fundamentals of economics work. Because I know not everybody's familiar with that, and I feel like if I go through that, it'll probably help bring us all onto the same page so that more of you can have an educated opinion on it if you're not already familiar, and give you an opportunity to speak out and help be a part of this solution. So we've had some good news this week. For those of you who weren't aware, Reuters published an article based on the research done at the University of Southern California. And they basically found through their findings that they estimate 40 times more people have antibodies to this virus than have actually been confirmed cases. And I worked the numbers backwards on that. And what I came up with based on the deaths as of the 21st of April was that the death rate on this virus is actually only 0.17% as of that date, and the information provided based on the findings of that study, and suggesting that 40 times more people actually have antibodies to it. So basically what that means is we're dealing with something that is no more deadly than the flu. In fact, it actually shows as less deadly according to that research. And I'm not saying that's 100% correct. Obviously, more research needs to be done, but that is a promising sign. Of course, we know this virus is still spreading fairly aggressively, but there's a number of factors to consider then there too. I think that that's promising. I think that that shows that there's a lot of promise for us if we do start to gradually resume our society. And I really do believe that that's what we need to do. We see our neighbors to the south doing that right now. Obviously, we'll all be watching and hoping for the very best so that we can get this show back on the road and preserve what's so very important here in our society, which is our culture, our small businesses, and of course our sovereignty and our ability to continue to buy because we preserve the buying power of our Canadian dollar. So my little rant for today. Of course, these are just my opinions, guys. As always, I do have several resources that I'd be happy to point out if people want to learn more. Of course, I'm always happy to spitball a little bit. If you want to shoot me a message, depending on how many I get, it might be a little delayed in getting back to you. But I want to be part of the solution. Hopefully you do too. And hopefully we can resume and see opportunities in our real estate market and continue on in our business. But without further ado, here is episode 63 with Sandy MacKay. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Sandy MacKay, a legendary podcast host here in Canada. He's on the show. Sandy, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm breaking my rule right now and doing an over the internet podcast because of the virus. So I think we're both in quarantine.
Yeah, is this your first one? Not live in studio?
I did a couple early on, and then I just did one a few episodes ago. But yeah, this is not something I regularly do, just because obviously you get better sound quality if you do it in person. But that's not always possible, obviously. So, anyways, I'm glad that we could set this up. So, Sandy, for the people who aren't familiar with you somehow, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of a rundown on what you have done as an investor, as a podcast host, and your journey in real estate, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So I guess we go back, would be maybe 8-9 years ago now that we really got into this world of real estate investing. We started our podcast, Breakthrough Real Estate Investing Podcast, 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago. So it's been around quite a while. One of the first ones for Canadian investing in that space, and obviously helped to hopefully inspire some others to do some great shows like yourself and others. So that's been a journey in its own, doing the show. And then aside from that, we've also right around the time I started that show, or a little bit after, got my real estate license, was convinced to get my real estate license after we had been doing a little bit of wholesaling real estate and some creative investing strategies that are still working. They're still great. There's some very unique challenges with that in Canada, I think, that make it a little more difficult in the US, wholesaling specifically, but definitely still possible and still doable. And so we did a bunch of those deals, got convinced by another realtor to get my real estate license. And at that point, we were just kind of looking at Hamilton as a area to invest in as well. I'm not originally from Hamilton, although I live here now and have been here for probably close to 5 years now.
Where are you from?
A little over 5 years now, actually. Grew up in Newmarket area.
Okay.
So it's north of Toronto. At the time when we started getting more serious, we were living in the Vaughan area. And so, hour drive here to Hamilton. And we started looking at it here for some investment stuff. And then, got into the realtor world and got my license. My wife did as well. And then we started to build up the real estate business on the realtor side as well as the investment side, kind of going hand in hand. I kind of wanted to get all in the real estate world in some way. So jumped in that way. At the time we had some properties. We were just looking at Hamilton, like I said, but we had properties in other areas. We had a couple of investments in Oshawa where we had done some duplex conversions. We had one in Barrie. So we kind of dabbled into a couple markets and then really settled into Hamilton around 5 years, or just a little over 5 years ago now. And ramped up things here once we moved to Hamilton. Started buying a lot more, started doing a lot of joint venture properties with partners. And then, into today, we started a property management company, which would have been 3 years ago now. And that's my wife's full-time gig. She runs that. Team of, I think, 12 running that company now. Realtor team has grown over time, and to a point we have 15 or so realtors now. Investment side of it is probably a specialty of ours. We do a lot more of kind of the whole residential world of real estate now at this point in terms of the realtor side. And then we started a construction company a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe now, and with a partner. And so kind of basically we kept looking at it in terms of the BRRRR strategy, which we do a lot of: buy, renovate, refinance, and rent, and kind of just trying to get every element of that in-house so we can control it. And so started a few other companies along the way to help with that, and all along, just aiding our investment business, which is where we can have all these other companies, but the real main goal is to grow our portfolio, which we've been doing for 5-6 years pretty aggressively.
Wow, that's you do a good job just talking on your own, so I don't have to ask many questions. But I appreciate that. So I've taken a similar approach with starting the own construction company to do my own BRRRRs. And for me, I'll give you my perspective, and maybe you can tell me if it was a similar thing for you. I just noticed that like GCs, they charge a lot more. Like when you get priced from a general contracting company, it's a lot more than it would be if you put it together yourself, hired your own people. So I went down the road of getting my own WSIB, getting my own insurance, like hiring my own employees, plus doing my own subcontractors. Is that sort of why it came to fruition for you too? You saw the cost benefit of it, or is it efficiency? Like what was it?
All of that really. I mean, we started out. So actually, the biggest thing for us was finding the right person to partner up with. That was probably we kind of toyed around with this idea for at least a year, trying to talk to current contractors we were working with and other people in our network. And the challenge with that at the time, a lot of the good, we wanted to partner with it. We didn't want to be full on ourselves. That wasn't really any of our goals. Was to it wasn't a goal of mine to be in that space day to day. So the way to do it for us was to find a partner who wanted to be in that space day to day, and they'd benefit from us bringing the business basically. So we'd be, instantly doing all of our projects along with, we could filter out some other clients and whatnot into that business for them. And they would look after everything in terms of running the team of contractors and then, helping out quoting, putting it all together. So we had some, not really challenges, just kind of typical challenges, finding the right person for that. And yeah, we wanted to do it mainly because, cost savings was one, really time. I mean, which is cost at the end of the day too, which is, it's all comes down to saving money, but the time was the biggest thing. We had a lot of great contractors that we worked with, some not so good, some, in between, but always come down to timing and, someone looking after the project on behalf of us, they'll take timing somewhat serious, but when it's your own project and you really know that, a month or two savings at the end of a project is going to save you, you can add up all the things, right? Add up the rents, you can add up just all the costs, holding costs that come with that.
Private money, that's expensive.
Private money, perhaps, all the different things, right? So getting a project done efficiently and quickly has always been important. And I find it challenging to do that with, the general contractors that are out there. They just won't look after it as much as you would your own, right? So yeah, we've been able to, that's been our main focus the whole time. Since we started that was just making sure we're done, obviously with good quality, but in a timely manner.
Yeah, you can give yourself priority. That's the biggest thing. Like I used to do like whole projects in a summer, when students would leave April 30th and then, September 1st, I have students moving back in. So we had 4 months to gut what we needed to gut, renovate what we needed to renovate. We're building additions and then refinish it and be totally done. Students moving in within 4 months. For most contractors, you could tell them, "Hey, this is when I need it," and they say, "Yeah, sure." And then, sure enough, they end up 2 months later, 3 months later. Well, as a student rental landlord, I'd be getting sued, so I couldn't do that. But and on top of that, it's like private money. The sooner I get done, the sooner I can refinance with the bank and pull that expensive money out of there.
And that's a really hard deadline in that case, which is good. It's challenging. You can put in all the penalty clauses you want and all that stuff, but it still doesn't, nothing really 100% guarantees that it's going to get done on time unless you have more control over it.
Oh, but if you have your own employees and you're writing the paycheck and they don't work for anybody else, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So how does your agreement work there?
With our partner there?
Yeah, so you found somebody who's got some skills. And
yeah, it was a client actually who was doing a lot of these projects himself, and he would never use any of our GCs we'd recommend. He would go out and basically be the GC for his projects and hire all the different trades and stuff. And he was looking for a different opportunity, and we kind of brought this to him. We had brought this idea to some other contractors, but they had big enough businesses on their own. They wanted to maintain what they had started and just wasn't the right fits. And so we brought this to our partner. His name's Lee Pollock, and he's a partner of ours, Vision Construction in Hamilton and around the area. And so he liked the idea. We just put it on paper, got together over it. And basically he runs the company day to day, and we feed it business, and that's the basic structure. I'll get involved here and there. I spend max a couple hours a week on that, just trying to help the business kind of grow and doing whatever we need to do to lead it and grow it. But otherwise, we feed a business their own projects, and then we have the realtor team and property management. That whole collaboration, kind of all feeding business back and forth, has worked out pretty well.
Nice. And do you have like a deal that if it's your own project, you guys just do it at cost, or are you always, pumping some profit into the company no matter whose deal?
Yeah, we toyed around with that. The same thing on the property management side. We also toyed around with giving ourselves everything at cost. I found it didn't work very well, to be honest. And so we probably did 6 months to a year on the construction side and the property management side, where we were doing everything at cost for ourselves and then charging normally for other clients. I didn't find it worked out that well long term. It probably could. We, at the end of the day, like, we're paying ourselves in 4 or 5 different ways here, and we really just want to see these companies be proper businesses on their own, regardless of the network of companies that we have there. So in order to do that and to make sure that we're giving good service all around in the companies, we really can't be cutting too much. It just doesn't make much sense. So we give ourselves the best deal that we could give that's still like a normal client,
right?
Cost. So
Yeah, it's an efficiency thing. Like it's going to be too much to manage if you try and separate it like that. That makes sense. So you just keep everything kind of operating properly.
Yeah, like even like on the property management side, for example, we typically are charging ourselves 8% on the rents, for example, which is a pretty standard cost that most people would charge other people. So
is that including leasing?
Leasing would be extra.
Leasing's extra. Okay, so that plus leasing.
Yeah,
and are you available for anybody to use your services, property management wise?
Oh yeah. Like I said, that's the same for me personally. I don't spend a lot of time in either of those spaces. My wife runs the property management company day to day, so that's our full time thing. Tough world for whatever reason. She really enjoys it. It was never a thing that I really enjoyed about real estate investing, but she really does, and she helps there. So it's someone to contact her, but I can certainly help out with that introduction, and we definitely take on other clients aside from ourselves. We manage 600 or so units there currently.
Wow, you're busy.
But not all ours.
What was the drive? Like, so you started the construction company. You said it's the same reason for the property management, just to have control over it, because you're not dealing with the same time frames there.
The property management one, we really needed it a lot more. Like, I guess, the challenge has always been for us is finding companies that can do stuff at our, expectation of what we would have if we were doing it ourselves. And I'm a really big believer in leveraging, and I don't expect things to be done. If I wanted to do something, 100% to my level, I don't expect everyone to do it at that level necessarily. I always say if I'm going to get 75, 80% as well of a job done, and I can get someone else to do that, I'm going to probably leverage it. And so we're looking at that in the property management world. And there wasn't a whole lot of great, I don't know, there are some great companies out there. We just couldn't find one that worked for us properly. And so my wife was looking for another role. She's a realtor as well, but she was doing a role with our office, our brokerage, in a leadership role there. And she got out of that and was looking for something else to do. This kind of aligned with that. And we just went in on that. We needed it because we were managing our own properties at the time, and it was just getting a bit out of control with timing and everything. And so we needed some leverage there, and she needed something to pursue, something that she liked and enjoyed, and fell into that.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds growing it from there.
It sounds like a great little compliment. So you guys get to work together. My wife and I, we don't exactly work together on our investments. She's kind of doing her thing, I'm doing my thing. But I would love that kind of arrangement where we kind of ran the whole show together. It's
great. It's better than what we've actually always worked together. So we've been together maybe 8 years or something. Married for 3 and almost 3 in a couple weeks, and we've always worked together. But we've always been actually even closer working together than we are now. Now it's a little bit nicer to have a tiny bit of separation, but still be in the same world and still being able to deal with each other a lot.
Yeah.
But they're great complementary, right? Obviously, you can pass business back and forth pretty well.
Okay, so just for a little bit of context, do you still own the properties that are outside of Hamilton, or you got rid of them?
We still own them. We've sold one. We've sold more than one property in our history here, but we've sold one that's been outside Hampton. So we've only ever sold. We have one in Oshawa that we sold a few years back.
Okay.
But everything else we've kept.
So the one at the distance, you still got one in Newmarket, Vaughan, or?
Yeah, we have one in Vaughan, which was a house we used to live in, and then we have one in Barrie, and we have just one in Oshawa now, and then everything else is in Hamilton.
Okay, and what are you at total? Approximate.
We have we have an investment company too that we started a couple years ago. We have about 15 that are just personal or JVs outside of that company, and then inside that company we have another probably 40 or so properties.
Yeah, and is that a similar model where you're JV'd on them? Like, is it a 50-50?
So those are all JVs.
Yeah.
So those are 40 or whatever amount of properties we have there are all joint venture partnerships. mostly 50-50 partnerships. Some of them, the odd one could be like a third or something here and there, depending on the structure. But yeah, so we have, all in all, if you add all those up, it's close to 200 units, I guess. And
holy crap, you're a busy guy then. So
yeah,
so construction company, 200 units, and property management company, obviously facilitating a lot of what you're doing. The ones that are at a distance, are you self-managing those, or do you have a JV that's managing them, or how?
We have other property management companies. So we have two other management companies that we work with that are in those areas. And, part of our goals going forward is to kind of expand our operations here into probably like those two markets would be very, very good markets for that. Oshawa, that Durham region area, and then BRRRR. Yeah. Kind of looking to expand a lot of our as we get really comfortable and good here in Hamilton with what we have locally. We'd expand all these realtor, investment company. Construction is a little more difficult, but definitely the property management into these other areas, probably the ones that we already have properties, would make the most sense.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Well, you've got a good connection in Rob up there in the Durham region. So yeah. For those who don't know, that's your co-host on Breakthrough REI podcast. I'm saying that right?
You got it. Yeah. So we've been doing that for 6 years. So we've been partners in that sense for a long time.
Okay. So going back to before that, because 200 units doesn't happen by accident. I think I understand from Rob that you guys met at an investor meetup. Was that like RAIN or something like that?
Durham REI. So Durham,
you met at Durham REI. Okay.
Durham Regional Real Estate Investment Club. Yeah. So we met there. Yeah, Kate, my wife, and I just started going there. Really, the story of ours started with Rich Dad Poor Dad conference, or Rich Dad, the free weekend Rich Dad Poor Dad thing, and went to that. Met some people there. From there, actually went to the Durham REI group and started going there every month. And went there 6-8 months, something like that, where we didn't really do anything, just gather knowledge, build our network. Started to do some wholesale deals and all that, and then. We met Rob there. Rob and I, we started talking a lot, just random conversations about real estate. We basically talk every day. And then we just said, why don't we start recording some of these things? And then realized that there was like nothing in that space in Canada, and decided to make it like totally Canadian and just go down that niche. And we're stuck with it. Yeah. For 6+ years now.
Yeah, you guys definitely got in at the right time. Like being that first mover is so huge. Yeah, you're definitely the go-to.
It's allowed us to have very average audio and video quality for 6 years and still get away with it.
Yeah, you get that right. It's hey, like, you know what? I can when I listen to the episodes, I can hear them, and I think that's the most important part. You guys get some really good guests. That which obviously comes, I think, when you're so well known. So I'm still working my way up there.
Some great guests too, like yourself. We've had you on there too. Not too long ago, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. Okay, so before all that, did you go to school here in Ontario? Did you go to post-secondary, or were you straight out into the work world? Like, what's your background?
Yeah, I went to University of Windsor for starters. So locally, I was average student, I guess. I was kind of bored I did pretty well growing up in school. Got I would say progressively worse because I got progressively more bored with all the topics, and ended up graduating not from there. Ended up going to a school in Australia a couple years after Windsor. There went to a school in Australia, which was like a golf sports management program that I ended up in, and graduated from there. Whenever that would have been 2008, maybe 2009. Okay. Started teaching golf there for a year and a half, 2 years after that. So I was over there living in Australia for almost just under 3 years, and nothing to do with real estate. Got out of that because I realized that industry just wasn't for me. It's a lot of patience and a lot of work, really, for very little money. It's very difficult to make much of a dent in that industry unless you're super passionate about it, which I was about playing it, but not really about teaching it for golf. And then came back here to Canada when I would have been 24, 25, something like that. 24, 25. And then really just dabble around into some kind of odd jobs, trying to get things going again. Met my wife at work, actually. She hired me for this role we were doing at an event company. And shortly after that, went to the Rich Dad Poor Dad event, learned about wholesaling real estate and some other areas. We didn't have any money, so obviously wholesaling was attractive to us because you could do a deal with no money. Started doing a few of those. I guess relatively successful with that compared to what most people are here in Canada. Probably did 10 or so wholesale deals in that year following that. One of them was like $25,000 wholesale deal, which was nice at the time. It was our biggest one, and it was really a lot more money than we've ever made. Took that $25K, put it right into a down payment on a duplex in Oshawa, which we bought for $267,000. So if you can do the math on that at 5% down at the time, we basically covered the whole cost of that place with that wholesaling
so you just had a wholesale
fee that we made.
So free house, sort of.
Kind of in a way, a free house.
Yeah.
We did spend about another 10 on like lines of credit or credit cards to renovate it. And it was like we didn't even know what the BRRRR strategy was at the time, but it was basically a version of that. Finished off that project and we rented it. Yeah, held that plate. That was like the one that we've sold out there. So we only held it for maybe 3 years, probably maybe even less than that. And we, 267, spent 10 grand on it, sold it for 415. Took the proceeds from that, bought 2 places here in Hamilton, just kind of snowballed.
Yeah. So that was your seed money to get things going then, basically.
Yeah. 25 grand from a wholesale deal.
Yeah, that's all it takes, right? So, okay, I did want to ask you, is I don't want to breeze over that because I think wholesaling has become a lot more popular than it was probably, that was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
A little more, 7 or 8, yeah.
7 or 8, because you became an investor, so basically 7 years ago then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's quick movement. So it was back then. It was a lot more rare to find that in Canada. Now, of course, we've got Luke and a bunch of other guys that are all in that scene doing wholesales. Yeah, they blew it up. What did you find that was working then, and do you still try to do that now, or is that just not an angle you try and take?
Yeah, good question. Back then, so what we did, the internet was alive obviously back then. We're not talking 25 years ago here, but it was not being utilized nearly the way it is today. Social media was way, way less of a thing. It was still something, but it wasn't nearly as big as it is now. Mm-hmm. And so we weren't using really anything socially online. We were doing some classified ads, so Kijiji ads and that online that we were using to find distressed sellers and people that we could help out through wholesaling them a deal. We were building up our lists, our buyer and seller lists, our investor list of people that wanted to purchase off-market properties, and our potential list of sellers who are motivated. That was what we focused on a lot, was the lists, and essentially building up our database, which is something that we still focus on a lot now, but just in different ways. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was all about the wholesale deals and who we could align with those deals, which was great because now, as a realtor and another investor and all that, it's great to have those people in our network. Oh yeah, that we built up over time. So we had like a landing page for investors, and we had a landing page for sellers, and we do the classified ads to find both and drive them to those pages. Yeah.
You find legit buyers on Kijiji. I guess that makes sense because they're the people looking for cheap properties, and then you put it right there for them. We had
done some smaller deals, wholesale deals leading up to that $25,000 one, which were like $5,000, $7,000. Those were done with like people we knew directly that we met at a real estate investing club or whatever. We didn't find the deals through the club, but we found the investors there. The deal that we ended up doing that was the $25,000 one was a totally random investor that we'd never met, had signed up on our list through a Kijiji ad. The deal that we found was also through a Kijiji ad. It was literally both those lists combining. We sent an email out with this deal that we'd found, and it was in Burlington actually. And we didn't really even know the area that well. We weren't really typically looking in Burlington, but the deal came in through, and it was in Burlington. Quick numbers on it were like, it seems really cheap. And we sent it out to our list. And it was like instantly the same day, someone jumped up, was like, yeah, I'll buy that. Don't even really need to see it. We ended up showing it to them, but they closed in it. It was like a quick close, kind of perfect scenario almost. I think it closed in 7 days.
Holy crap, really?
Yeah. So it was like at that time for us, that was crazy because we hadn't made that much money before, and it was 25, like in a matter of 2 weeks or less.
And that was you and your wife doing that together?
Yeah.
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 Okay. So as far as that goes, were you just tying them up conditionally at that time? So you're just doing a conditional purchase and then trying to find a buyer. And if you didn't, you would just release that deal?
Yeah. And as little as we could for deposit on that deal. I believe we did $100 deposit, which seems crazy, but
do you just slide that through? You don't mention it?
Well, we're only tying it up for in that case, it was like 3 days or something that we tied it up. I mean, it's not like we're if we couldn't do anything with it, we weren't going to hold on to it for weeks trying to figure it out and only have them $100 deposit. Looking back, I mean, it's kind of silly for someone to accept that, but they agreed to it. We ended up helping them, and for that specific person, they were really happy to get that thing done. They needed money. 7 days was too long. They needed money the next day. So we did our best to make it happen quick, and it worked out. And they were happy to move on from that place that they owned, and we were happy to get it. The other really interesting lesson I learned from that, this is why we stopped wholesaling and started doing other stuff, was the investor that bought that, who we still know and talk to regularly today. They bought that deal. They made $130,000 on it or so. And afterwards they were like, why didn't you guys just we definitely would have just partnered with you. We still would have done all the work. We would have given you 50% of the deal, and we could have all split that 160K that was there. And we go, oh crap, man, we would have made 3-4 times what we made on it. But don't know what you don't know at the time. And, still worked out well for us.
So that morphed into the model where you just basically JV with people, you find the property, they put in the money, do the work. Is that kind of how that works typically?
Yeah. So we bought that one in Oshawa, and then it was only that one that we had actually, and the house we ended up living in personally that we bought. But other than those two, we didn't have any other properties. We started JVing right after that. So. Okay.
So you went into the JVs pretty heavy, pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. Like looking at the scale and how fast you're able to grow, doing it by yourself, you're never going to grow that fast. Now, you do avoid some of the headaches if you don't have great processes for dealing with your JV partners, which it sounds like you probably have some pretty good processes for dealing with them.
You need to as you scale up 100%. Yeah, you need to be able to leverage and be okay with that. You need to have some people in your world that you bring on and help with it. You need to have. We have virtual assistants now too that we've implemented a lot over the last 1.5 to 2 years that help with a little bit on the investing side, a lot in like every one of those businesses, construction, investments, realtor, and property management. They all have at least one virtual assistant that's in Philippines that helps us out. So there's a lot of different system stuff in there that can help, and a lot of different things we've used over the years.
Well, tell me a little bit about that, like what you found. Like for me, my head was about to pop off before this whole virus thing started, and I'm still incredibly busy, but just like my phone rings a little less, which is helpful. What is it that you've done that allows you to have your sanity, run all these companies, have all these properties? Like what allowed you to trust those people when you said if they could do it 80% as well? Kind of, if you can, pull back the curtain a little bit and help me understand what the mental process was and how it evolved.
So I mean, primarily, maybe it's a little bit natural that I'm a little bit okay with leveraging things and happy to partner with people. I'm very much an optimistic person versus being skeptical, which is not always a positive. But I also have learned a lot over times from. Different business trainings that I've gone to and spent a lot of time on gaining knowledge around that have helped me probably get confidence to partner with people and to take risks that others might not. I think it's really based on knowledge. I could say that I'm probably a little more or a little less risk adverse than some people, but I'm also just confident because I've really spent a lot of time, gaining knowledge around this stuff and business training in general. Really, I spent a lot of time learning about business training. That stuff you don't necessarily learn in school. Things you need to learn by doing or by hanging around other entrepreneurs and building up your environment around you to help you, feel confident in those decisions. We've spent. Not always the great relationships that I've been into, but a lot of times, the people that we have gotten into business with have been really good. And I think most important thing really is people and getting the right people on board. One of my mentors, I guess I would call him, Gary Keller, who runs Keller Williams, the realtor company that I'm a part of. He has many different businesses, and he always says that in order to launch any great business, all you need is an idea and someone to run with the idea. And you don't need to do any of it yourself. If you get the right person that's excited about it, whatever percentage splits you want to do, that can be always negotiated. But all you need is a great idea, especially once you've built up a business. It's really easy to do some spin-off businesses from it,
Right.
complementary ones, and like ancillary businesses. And just all you need is someone to run with the idea, and they can be a big part of it if they get it off the ground and get it going. That's worth, maybe 50-50 would be probably an average in what those would be worth. So, allowing someone to do that, we just let them go, let them run with it, and try and support them as much as we can. That if you're going to be overly involved in every single one of those, you're going to be impossible, right? You just can't keep up with that in terms of time.
So so you said your typical JV is not actually you doing the work. You usually let your partner do the work as far as a BRRRR goes, or are you doing the work?
No, for a BRRRR, I'd like to not do the work. We do all the work. I'd like to be just the money guy. I think that'd be the better way to do it long term, eventually. But we do the work side of it. So, like in a BRRRR strategy, I kind of have partners in every little component of that, which is nice from a time standpoint for me. I run the realtor team. That's my main focus day to day.
Okay.
So, finding a property, sometimes I get a little more involved in that side of it, more so than anywhere else. But I have my partner Adrian, who runs our investment division company right now. So he does a lot of the joint venture conversations. For example, like if I'm coming across a JV potential, unless it's someone I know from the past, I usually hand it off to Adrian, and he'll talk to them, onboard them as partners, and basically take that relationship on and keep that going. For the construction side of it, we get our construction guys in there, and they run it pretty seamlessly without me being involved. And then property management side, long term, my wife deals with that. I'm a little more involved just from an outside perspective, just helping her with things, but day to day, not really involved there with her team and whatnot. So it really just comes down to the buying the property. So sometimes I get some decision making to be done there, or just being in constant contact with our team, learning about opportunities that come up and helping them find opportunities, whether it's something that suits us and our investments, or it's clients or someone else. Just generally overseeing all that and helping them grow and do their thing ultimately leads to opportunities for us to get involved and buy the odd one. And from the time that we actually purchase something, I don't do a whole lot currently.
I love the sound of that.
Honestly, I enjoy them. I enjoy real estate investing. I honestly found a lot more enjoyment personally, just for me, out of helping our guys grow as leaders and helping them grow as great salespeople, and seeing them and watching them succeed. I found a lot more excitement in that over the last couple of years, and just now going more so all in on that, and ultimately help them grow and succeed. I'm going to get some value out of that in the long run.
So you profit, and you get to be around people who are constantly thinking and doing, and that's contagious. That's the thing I love about the team model. If you have a really good team in anything, is everybody pushes everybody, because you don't want to be that guy that's getting less results than everybody else. You want to step it up and find a way to match. So, and it's tough as an entrepreneur on your own. Like when we were starting out, it was better for me as with my wife involved too. We had at least two of us, but it's a grind on your own to be doing anything entrepreneurial, where you can really feel lonely, especially like right now, given what's going on. Having a team around in any sense is really valuable, I think, especially if it's the right people. Yeah, and we'll get into the specifics of what's happening with the market right now and how that's affecting you. But I just want to get into your bread and butter before we do that. So you're typically functioning as the person that's finding the deals. Your team is there. Are they primarily salary based, or are they usually commission based? Like your guy that onboards the partners, does he get a commission, or is he just on your payroll?
So Adrian is a partner of mine in that business. We split everything basically. So he's very much in as an owner. So
everybody's incentivized that way. Is that more or less the way?
Well, on the pure investment team, we have another two people now that work. One of them is a realtor who works commission based, and then one of them is actually she's not quite. She was about to join up with us. She hasn't. We've postponed it a month just based on what's going on in the world. But she'll be a salary. So we have a mix of across all the board there. We have a mix of salary and commission based, and I guess more just different versions of like hourly or self-employed now too.
Nice.
Realtors are all commission based. A lot of the realtor team is commission based, but we have a lot of salaries now too.
Nice. Yeah, I find like from a personal, like with my construction company, like when I hire a few extra people, if they're good people, like my life just gets so much easier. Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to have, with all this stuff going on right now, I've been actually fortunate enough to ramp up the amount of people I have working for me. And nice. Oh my God, it's made life easier. That's part of the reason why I'm getting less calls now, is because I have more competent people on site on a daily, which
yeah, and if you have the right people, you know, you get a lot less to do with. They're good and they want to deal with it. They're motivated for whatever reason to work with that. I really like you asked about salary commission. I really like in any way we can. It doesn't always work perfectly depending on the role, but I always love to have someone who's really, really small salary or small wages or whatever, and high incentives through commissions or bonuses. Yeah. I find that's the best model. Then they're at least motivated to make more money through some things, not always through sales, but whatever different ways we can incentivize them.
Do you find that you're able to find people who are just intrinsically motivated to want to satisfy, like want to do a good job?
Yes and no. I think it always comes down to they have to get whatever they want out of it, right? Out of that relationship. One of the biggest things that I found starting out with any business, but you know, in the ones that we've done for sure, is just having a good vision and a mission for people to be a part of. That's something that you can't get really good people to join up with for something at the cost that you're going to be able to pay them at the start, unless there's a big mission or vision behind it. And so they have to align with that, and they have to see the long-term vision of that and see where their career can grow to. Otherwise the really best people are going to be too expensive at the beginning, and you're not going to be able to afford that, right? So you have
is
to
that true? That's true across the realtor business and in the renovation side. And
I think it's everywhere. Yeah, I think so. Unless you're starting a business there, they have a lot of cash on hand for whatever reason, and you can afford to pay someone, six figures for, because a lot of the great people are probably worth six figures plus, but you're not probably, maybe you can't afford more than, 35, 40,000 at the beginning. Right. So you need to they need to be excited to work there. And, you got to put them, show them the path, right, to what that could look like.
Yeah. And for an example of that, like for my stuff, when I started doing the student rentals, anybody working there, I'm like, I was just beating it into their heads. I'm like, these have to be better than all the rest. The only way this works is if this is better than everything else out there. So we only do great. Hey, Andrew, what do you want us to do with that? I want you to make it look right. We don't do sloppy renovations, or we don't do sloppy work. So I guess that was like the vision I tried to do, which I'm sure you have a much better example, because I know Gary Keller teaches that, and you're obviously with Keller Williams. So I think that there's just so many business skills that are learned through that approach.
Yeah, I think so. And you're like, even in that example, like even that. So yeah, probably people have a little more passion around doing something great versus just getting, crap thrown together and figured out, like, naturally the people are going to be a little more excited about building a project like that.
Yeah, it's like really great. And you could take photos when you're done. Like I'd let them like, hey, take all the photos you want of it. Show all the, show your friends what you do. Like show them that you make really cool projects and you worked on that. So I try and keep everybody motivated that way. And that's because if you do like mediocre stuff, everybody has a mediocre attitude about it.
Usually, yeah, and it's not very exciting to be a part of. It's just basic, right? It's pretty boring for the most part. Yeah,
exactly. That's for me. I mean, not that there's not a place for mediocre rentals. I mean, there's a huge market for that, but I don't really love being in that market.
Yeah, unless you're going to pay them a lot. Money talks for some people, but even money is like, it's not the biggest thing. For a lot of people, money is not that important, actually. If you really go deep with people, money is, for entrepreneurial type people, usually there's some sort of money motivation, but a lot of people that are in, okay to take the salary, they might have way more family aspirations that don't really need money, or there's so many other things than just the money side that you can help get people excited about working with you with.
Well, and I'll call a spade a spade. I mean, with the tax structure we have here in Canada, when you make more, you pay a lot more in taxes. So if you don't love what you do, there is a certain point where people are just like, nah, Like, I mean, I'm not really that motivated.
You don't need to make more money. There's no point. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're actually going to net the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a certain bit of apathy I see in Canadians, which is definitely due to our tax structure. And yeah, I mean, that's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down, but it's just more topical these days because of everything going on in the economy, which we're going to get into in just a second. I just wanted to ask you about your typical project. So Mike Johnson was on here, and I think he learned it from you doing the 2.5-story brick houses.
I like those. I mean, I think it depends where you are located for sure. Like you can't do these projects everywhere. Our typical projects, we are doing some bigger stuff now, some apartment buildings and that, but the ones that we've done, our bread and butter for the last few years has been ideally it could be legal 4-unit, but most of them are legal 3 units. And so there's 2.5-story bricks. Usually they might not have 3 or 4 units in them to start with, but our goal is usually to make them 3 or 4 unit properties. And one unit on the main floor, one on the second, and then they'll have an attic unit, and then usually a basement. Yeah. And I just found there's the most you could get the biggest lift out of those. On the residential side, we've done some duplex conversions, and they're all good, and you can do all those projects in work. We just found we're leaving in some money every time we do that, and it's a much easier sell to partners if we could tell them that they're going to get all their money back. And then once you do that for someone and they get all their money back, it's like, why would they not just keep going more and more and more? And there's no end in sight. Whereas, the only end there is that they can't qualify for another mortgage, perhaps. But the other side where they have, doing a duplex, because duplex, I always found you're leaving in at least 20,000 up to 70, 80 grand, depending on the project. And that's fine. Just for the people that have a lot of money, you can still keep going and doing a lot, but eventually that adds up to being a decent amount of money that's tied up for a few years at least, right?
Yeah, so that's the incredible thing with these 2.5 stories that you've been doing, is that you're getting to pull your money back out. Is that still what you're doing, or do you have another example you could give us of a BRRRR you've done, and that's been kind of like call it middle of the line BRRRR for you?
Yeah, we've done a lot of those. Those have been the primary projects. Hamilton has an abundance of them, so it's been a great area to do it. And if you're in different cities, you might not be able to do that because there just won't be the inventory. That's why we've liked Hamilton. It's got a good inventory for that, and it's got a lot of rundown places that needed to be turned around. And there's still a lot of those, so that's why we keep doing them here. Prices have gone up for sure, but rental rates have also gone up a lot, and so the numbers still can make sense. We've started doing some bigger buildings. That's the main thing, would take longer. Like those ones we can turn around. Definitely worst case scenario, like a year, more likely 6 to 8 months, just depending on the tenant scenario. And do we need to, remove tenants and go down that road, because that usually adds on a few months. Or if we get it vacant, it's a lot quicker. We have a couple in the works right now that are not completed, that are like an 8-unit and a 15-unit building that are going to be more like 2-year projects, but the exact same model, just buying, renovating, removing tenants. We're having to remove a bunch more tenants in that case, and make some deals with those tenants to move them out. And then same process. Numbers are a little different because now you're commercial mortgages, so it's all about cap rate. And whereas the residential side, on a residential mortgage, it's always a lot more about comparables, and not just rental rates don't really affect that as much.
Yeah, so even if you're in a triplex area, it's still more comparable than it is from an appraisal standpoint about cap rate.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes that space a little tough in some markets, is there's just no comparables, right? So you always you have to look at what the comparables are. The tough thing with it too is that they can't go back more than 6 months, and sometimes some appraisers might say 3 months even on how far back they go in terms of where they get their comparables from. And so if they can only go back 6 months, Hamilton thankfully has a good chunk of inventory that gets sold at those higher price points, but in Toronto and all the bigger markets would, but smaller markets can be tougher because now you're looking for, maybe your property is really worth, whatever it is, a triplex, it's worth 700 grand, but if there's no sale of that product in the last year, maybe you're not able to show the bank that it's worth that. So there's a lot of little fine details with that refinance part that you need to be careful about with the BRRRR strategy.
Now, if memory serves, and obviously this isn't like we're recommending one lender, because I think the policies always change and you can never really rely on one. But I believe Mike was saying you guys were having a lot of luck with Scotiabank.
Yeah, Scotia's been I would say, unless we're doing anything private or B lenders or something creative, a little more creative, it's been the go-to A lender for a while on a residential platform with like someone qualifying personally, no corps or anything like that.
Yeah, so not getting into commercial lending. Obviously, you're going to have to do that with your 8-plex, 15-plex, but you're still on, if you're in a triplex area, you're still on residential lending with the bank. Okay, so are you able to pick your own appraiser, or do you guys have an established relationship with an appraiser that you can kind of get to pick up your deals, or is it always random?
That's been actually a really, really good piece for us for probably 4 years now, was having the same appraiser, which is not something that I believe is doable all the time. It kind of just came about with us, built the relationship with her, and also through our mortgage brokers, Synergy Mortgage Group, who we use a lot here locally in Hamilton. They have that relationship with an appraiser that we're able to almost all the time use the same appraiser, which is not always the case. And it just allows us to be a little more direct in communicating with them, and they know the type of product we do. They know that they're not gonna risk their their role or their professional career with giving us something silly, but they're just going to give us the benefit of the doubt that they know that maybe they'll come in and see that we have a few things left to do, but they know we're going to finish it and still give us the right amount, and they'll give us slightly higher maybe than they would someone else, just because they know that we do the same thing over and over again and they know what to expect.
They know the quality of your product. The other thing, the thing I love about getting the same appraiser, and I specifically had to have it with the student rentals, is they were all selling off market. So they were just direct to investor. Like it was always, from one investor to another. And because of that, if you didn't work with the appraiser that had appraised the other properties, they couldn't use it as a comparable because it wasn't a market transaction. So for me in London, that actually became an essential, because if you get a random in there, they're like, what? This price doesn't even make sense. Meanwhile, there's been like 50 properties that have traded in that valuation, but they just didn't go on the actual
to do that. Did you have like direct access to that lender? Was it through a mortgage broker or a bank? Or
so I was working with CIBC, and the guy I worked with at CIBC would call because they still used a broker system. So you probably your appraisals might go through NAS or Solidify. There's another one called F&F, and they're basically a pool. And the appraisal request drops into the pool, somebody picks it up. So what he was doing, I kind of just derived what he was doing, is he would hit submit, and then he would call the guy right away. He's like, hey, Drew, pick up that request. And he'd pick it up. And sure enough, like the numbers made sense to him. He had the comps already. It was really easy for him to just do another of the same. If you're doing a cookie cutter model, it's easy to give it the same valuation because you have direct comps. And I'm assuming that with your guys, it was a similar relationship. They'd built that up. They knew they could just call him and say, hey, we just hit submit. Can you pick it up? And again, I don't know the exact inner workings because I've never been able to do it directly myself. Of course, from a broker standpoint, they say, nope, you have to order it through one of these brokers, and it's totally random. You can't even see who the person is. Like it's like Kijiji, where it disguises the email address when you email each other. Like you can't see who that person is. You can't even see their name. So that's why it really helps if you have direct access to them and you can tell them, please pick this up.
It's huge for the on the residential side, at least on the refis. It's really, really, really big to have that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. This is the part where normally I'd get into some specific numbers, but I mean, Mike's episode, we kind of went through like a perfect BRRRR. I think you had told me that you had one where you pulled out even like 150 grand or something like that.
We've had some silly numbers on some of these deals that have been really great. Like for comparing to other residential deals, there's been some, it's been very, very rare that we haven't pulled out every single penny that we've put in. Like there's been the odd one where we've left in maybe up to 10 grand or so. But for the most part, we're getting all of our money back out. And I don't know what the most, I think we have done one that would have been one somewhere between 120 and 150 that we'd pull all of it out. This is a few years back now. The reason we pulled that much money was because the renovation was larger than normal. We added a lot more value. We were able to pump it up more, right? So I think the renovation was close to 300 grand there on a fourplex that we bought for like 235, and then we bought it for 237,500. This is going back a few years, but it was like completely a mess. Not falling over structurally, it was really well, but inside total, got reconfigure everything. And so it was upwards to, I want to say it's about 270, 280 on the renovation, and then refinance for 850. So some loose math there. You're at we're at 500 and change with holding costs and everything, and then 850. So we pulled back out. What's that? 670. Is that right?
Let's see here. So 850 times 0.8. So yeah, so 680 minus
80.
550. So yeah, you were, let's just see what you're
140,000 that we got back out on top of what we put in. So that's talking about flipping to yourself. That's where it really was flipping to ourselves. We actually got the flip profit out of it too, and our money back. So.
And you cash flowed after all that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, with management fees, with all the other stuff, we don't necessarily cash flow a ton. We cash flow enough. Like we don't
get a few $100.
Yeah, a few $100 on that probably now, which is okay for us. I'd rather have the 130 grand in my pocket that I could reinvest now and do again.
You can grow so much bigger. You can grow so much bigger in the long run. So
and over time, the cash flow will get slightly better as rents go up and your mortgage pays down, right? And
except for this, what do they call this? The Black Swan event that we're having right now. Good time to transition now. I guess let's start off with what you are seeing in the market, like just some general comments. You know, we're into this right now. We still have the right to leave our houses once we're out of our quarantine and go to the grocery store, but that could change very soon too.
I guess I'm kind of grateful right now. I have a lot of different ins on the industry because even doing the podcast, talking to all these people, we have the property management company, which has been really interesting in the last couple of weeks. Everyone was pretty surprised actually at how many people got their full amount of rent on April 1st. They're a week or so ago. May might get a little tougher potentially, but a lot of people were waiting on the government bailouts. A lot of tenants, at least, were waiting on the government handouts and stuff that came or that are coming through this week. So I think that's going to help a lot of people. I was just talking with my wife Kate there before the show. Our typical monthly at this point, so a week after the first, our typical amount of people that haven't paid is like what was the number? 7%, I think. And by the 15th of the month, we're usually down to like 1 or 2% left that haven't paid. But we were 10% higher. So we're up around 15, 17% that hadn't paid so far this month, which wasn't a huge, at the end of the day, we've talked to them all. Communication has been important. If people aren't communicating with their tenants through this, they definitely need to start. So we know where things are at. We know there are a couple of people that just aren't paying for whatever reason, but most of them are on a payment plan of some sort at this point, and most of them are waiting for the government benefits here to kick in, and then they're going to pay up in full. So that's been interesting to see. It hasn't been a big drop off from what I was expecting, potentially like 30-40% of people not paying rents, and so that's been kind of a pleasant surprise. And then that could get worse. So I'm suggesting everyone in our companies and people I know to just be really careful with expenses. It's a fine line because you really want to support small businesses and other businesses that are also impacted by this. And at the same time, you got to make sure that you survive this. Like make sure that, if you own a lot of properties and you're good cash flow positions, be really grateful that you're in that, and make sure you also want to make sure that for us, we have a lot of employees and people that we work with, and we really want to be careful, help them be careful, and make sure that we have money and everything set aside to help employ them, to help keep them, making money through this. Because if it's only a month or two, it's going to be relatively easy to get through. But if we're sitting here 4 or 5 months from now, every little bit you save today could go towards that, keeping that person on as a salaried person or whatever situation we're in August, September, October that you might need cash for. So, the market wide, and then beyond that, the market is definitely slowing down. So we've seen that over the last, from a realtor's perspective, it's pretty in that business is really good to gauge what's happening with the market because we're seeing all the stats come through all the time. Definitely there's a lot less. It's very unique this time because typically you can sense, how many showings are happening, how many people are coming through open houses on the weekends, and you can start to see the downward trend or upwards trend in activity and get a sense of what, where we're at, buyer or seller market. It's a lot more difficult now because there's naturally way less people seeing properties, but at the same time, there are still activities happening. People are still buying properties for the short term, at least. They're not maybe showing them. They're going through virtual tours. All the whole virtual world is opened up.
Yeah, I was speaking with Dylan, and he was saying that they're going to the houses and just taking videos and then kind of posting them on YouTube, private links, and sending them to potential buyers, things like that.
Yeah, I am sensing, like, from the investor's point of view, there's a lot of, it's slowing down regardless. Across the board, it's slowing down.
Yeah.
Buyers are just sitting on the fence. They're just waiting to see.
Yeah.
Fearful minds tend to do that. They don't do anything. They just wait and see. And so I think for the sophisticated investor, there's going to be a lot of opportunities that are either there now or that are going to start to appear over the next few months. So I think now more than ever, a great opportunity to build up your knowledge on this stuff, get your mind ready to take some action, smart action, and take advantage of some of these opportunities. I mean, really good quote I've heard recently, and I've heard it before, but it's coming up again a lot because we're maybe in the midst of one, is a recession. Just never waste a good recession, because these opportunities only come around once a decade typically, and this is the time where investors really make a lot of money.
Yes, this is a recession, and people will always try to time the bottom, and we're not functioning as a normal society right now, so it's really hard to gauge anything, as you've pointed out, because we're not functioning. I don't believe that real estate markets, if they're going to trend downward, I don't believe that it's an instant thing, not like the stock market. If it is going to happen, it's a slower progression. You look at the States, 2009 to 2011, 2012, it really took to fully, adjust downward when it did. Who knows what will happen here in Canada because of the amount of money that's being thrown around and what's going to happen when we come through this.
I think the one thing that's interesting, and this is always now, starting to have these conversations again, bottoming out and trying to find where the bottom is going to be. It's impossible to know. And the biggest thing on that too, I guarantee everyone who says that is still not going to buy when we're at the bottom.
No.
Because you know what? It's a heck of a lot harder to buy properties when it's at the bottom. Because the reason it's at the bottom is because money is hard to get. Access to cash is difficult. Banks are way tighter.
The banks will be tighter, or you won't be able to take advantage.
You're not gonna be in a better place. 99 out of 100 people, or maybe even more, are not going to be in a better place to take action. Yeah. The better place to take action is usually when the markets are up and it's easier to access cash and everything. So a good deal is a good deal. The market doesn't matter.
That's the key. And I think that people really need to not lose sight of the fact that it was always about fundamental investing. Like whatever your fundamental was, like if you had a loan to value that made you comfortable, for me, it's a cash flow amount that made me comfortable, or some people like the 1% rule. Everybody's got their thing, and your market works for you. Pick markets that you like the economics in long term. Pick markets that you're going to hold houses in, and you'd be willing to hold houses in long term, and that you're going to cash flow in regardless of if you're up or if you're down. One thing that I think, and I'm very curious with you, is you never know where this might go, but luxury goods might be the first thing to go if we have times of economic uncertainty. So we may see more people kind of steering towards more basic housing versus high-end finished housing. Do you have a gauge on that? Do you think that that's the way this would play out if we are going to see a reduction in spending?
Probably. I mean, usually the luxury market in real estate is hit the first, hit the quickest. And first-time buyer range is always safe. For most first-time or early-on investors, that's usually the place they should get into, just to be, have some sort of comfort with that. There's always going to be a demand for those basic houses, I guess, that we were talking about earlier. Like average finishes are always going to be pretty in demand because they're affordable and safe. It's safe for banks to lend on, safe for everyone, right? So it's easy to access money for them. I think it's definitely more, there's a lot of people in that space. You watch the TV shows and stuff that are doing these luxury flips and big developments and all that. For sure, those are going to get hit first. Not many people are buying anything right now. And the longer this goes, there's going to be a lot less people buying stuff, and there's certainly not a lot of people buying luxury real estate. Yeah,
which means it's opportunity, right? There's always a silver lining. If less people are buying, then there is an opportunity there. It's just a matter of being able to put the pieces together and make the deal happen, which will be the challenge, right? If the banks do tighten.
I mean, you know what? If that's what in the realtor world, any conversation we're having with someone who's looking to move up in price range right now, like they're looking to buy something more expensive, sell their current place, it's a great opportunity for that person, because if the markets are good, let's say they dip 10% across the board, and you sell your house at $500,000 and you go buy $1 million house, well, you just made a $50,000 spread there on that just on the basic market correction, right? So I think there's opportunities in every market, and you just need to be, don't be like just hearing one headline here or there and just taking it for what it is. Just think about things, think about anything you read and hear people say, and just think if it makes sense to you, and learn as much about the investment world as you can, so you can actually take real, proper, like sophisticated action towards it, and you'll find a lot of opportunities there. Totally.
Oh yeah, there's so much time to educate right now, to consume all the content, and then you'll be ready to take action when the time comes. Now the time may be now. Like if somebody brought me the right deal, I would consider buying it now. It really just depends on how it looks. So with that said, anything you would like to leave our listeners with, just as we wrap up here, knowing the situation going on, final word of wisdom that we can leave them with?
Well, I think at any this is relevant at any time in life, but it's more so relevant now. Maybe two things. Number one, the environment that you surround yourself with is absolutely crucial. And this is not just a real estate thing. This is everything in life. You need to have a great environment around you, supportive environment. Real estate investment world's great for that, because we have, generally across the board, pretty sharing culture that people like to give and help people out. So just be cognizant of who you're hanging around with. Top 5 people, you're the sum of the top 5 people you hang around with. That can be looked at in terms of net worth or happiness or whatever different category you want to put that into. There's a lot of fear out there. So obviously right now, you're looking after your mindset is really, really key, really important. Just not going through life like a sheep, I think is what people usually refer those people to. Just
sheeple.
Yeah, sheeple. So just think about your mindset every day. Like I, in the mornings, I always do my best to write down some gratitude statements and just build up some energy for the day. Exercise, keep your body healthy. I think those are just, your mindset's super important right now, and it's also very as this virus is very contagious, your mindset is very contagious as well, and so is the fear, but so is good, positive, supportive efforts of everyone. So, look after yourself first, look after your neighbors and everyone around you in your world second, and hopefully keep spreading some positive vibes to this. And as a community and as a world, we'll get through this whole thing. But even in other times, regardless of the virus right now, just normally day to day, it's very infectious to be that person. And that helps you in investing. It helps you in your business world. It helps you in your happiness level in general.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, attitude is everything. It's everything. So that's great advice, and I appreciate that. And it's been a little hard, I'll admit. It's been a little challenging for me with everything going on. Not because of the investment world, but to me, like, I'm just thinking economic perspective. I care about the Canada we have. I'm really passionate about preserving it and how we need to get back to work. We need to have a solution. And I've been talking about this a lot. We need to have some sort of a plan, which we don't currently have yet. Hopefully by the time people hear this, we do, to kind of keep Canada, the Canada we know and love, because all these little small businesses that we care so much about, I want to see them stick around and be there at the other side of this.
Well, that's the thing. It is, especially now more than ever, there's a lot more fearfulness out there. There's a lot more stress around that stuff. That's fair. You can't just brush it on the rug. It's actually, it's real. And you can look at, like, there's really not much you can do. You can be positive about it, look for solutions, and put your energy into activities to help support it, or you can just, sit in the corner and sulk and get depressed. But
no, that's the key.
I'd rather do the first one.
So I've been asking people to contact your MPs, like push them for a plan, do something positive, something constructive that's going to push this forward and help us keep these businesses alive and well, because there's all kinds of places that, I'm going to want to be able to go out for dinner when this is all over. And I think we can all agree there. So if I can add to what you said, and I really appreciate it, is everybody stay calm, stay objective, care for your neighbors, encourage the people around you. Let's stick together. We're in this together. And
maybe don't go shopping at Costco. Go to the local place, because I've seen those photos are absolutely insane. That I haven't been out to see it yet, because we just got home 9 days ago. I haven't even seen what that world looks like yet. But maybe every day I would think about those things, and I'm going to be in the next few weeks just thinking about the local businesses. And I would go to the local grocery guy or the local, produce, whatever, local butcher, like going to Costco or some of the big brands, because those brands will probably be okay, but the local guys who sitting there 10 plus hours a day on their own, blood, sweat, and tears into the businesses, they're going to have challenges. So I think we should support them more than ever.
They need us, and they need us to speak up to government as well, because what they've done for these small businesses is not even close to enough based on the fact that we're locked down. I mean, the best solution is we get back at it, but the alternative is we got to do something else for them. So anyways, not to go down that rabbit hole, because this is something we could talk about all day. Okay, so Sandy, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
I mean, I'll give them my cell phone. Even they can text me, but if I can get my cell here, just don't call me, because I probably won't answer it depending on the time of day and whatnot. But you can text me. I'm always pretty good at text. 416-567-3866. They can go through our office line too, 289-389-6846, and someone will answer that all the time. But email too, Sandy@MacKayRealtyNetwork.com. That's SANDY@MacKayRealtyNetwork.com.
Yeah, MACKAY, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, Sandy, if unless you got anything else you want to add to that, I think we'll wrap it up.
No, that was a great show. I appreciate it. I was happy to share some of this stuff, and great convo. We got some interesting stuff out of that. I hope people take away, actually just do something with some of this information, and don't just sit there and take it in for what it is. Go take some action, especially with some of the stuff we talked about at the end there.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Opportunities now. Keep your eyes open for opportunity. It is out there. There are deals still happening right now. It's just a matter of fundamentals, right? Make sure you're getting the right advice and doing the right research. But anyways, okay. Thanks a lot, Sandy. Really appreciate it.
Andrew.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching today's episode. Just a friendly reminder to please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you smash the like and subscribe and notification bell. And also leave a comment. And hey, while you're at it, why not share this episode with somebody you think it could help? It helps this podcast grow, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next episode.